Silas didn't just grow grapes. He listened to the heartbeat of the earth. In his small sun-drenched vineyard in the rolling hills of Tuscany, he treated every vine as a daughter. To Silas, wine wasn't a commodity. It was captured sunshine, a liquid memory of the rain, the wind, and the ancient minerals deep within the limestone. He was a man of the earth, with hands as rough as oak bark and eyes that could predict a storm 3 days away. His life's work was the Eternal Reserve, a vintage he had been perfecting for 20 years using a secret forgotten fermentation process passed down by his grandfather. He lived for the land, and for Marcella, a vibrant, ambitious sommelier who had promised to help him share his gift with the world. He believed her when she said she loved the soil as much as he did. He didn't realize that Marcella didn't love the soil. She only loved the status that the world's most expensive bottle could buy. The betrayal came during the hottest summer on record. Marcella had introduced Silas to Julian, a cold-eyed corporate titan who owned a global conglomerate of synthetic beverage brands. Together, they convinced Silas to sign a partnership agreement that he believed would protect his ancestral lands. In reality, the fine print, hidden beneath layers of legal jargon, transferred the ownership of his secret fermentation process and the vineyard itself to Julian's corporation. The day the ink dried, the bulldozers arrived. They didn't want Silas's slow, patient methods. They wanted to turn his sacred hills into a high-speed, chemical-driven factory. "Patience is a luxury we can't afford, Silas," Marcella said, her voice as cold as a stainless steel vat. She stood beside Julian, wearing silk that cost more than Silas's entire harvest. They evicted him from his home, leaving him with nothing but a single pouch of dried seeds and the bitter taste of a lifelong lie. For 7 years, Silas disappeared into the high, rugged mountains where the soil was thought to be dead, a place the locals called the Black Slope. He lived in a stone hut, working as a day laborer for sheep herders. His hands grew even harder, and his hair turned the color of winter frost. But Silas wasn't defeated. He was observing. He realized that the high-altitude, volcanic soil of the Black Slope held a power that no valley vineyard could match. In secret, he planted his saved seeds. He used the harsh winters and the brutal sun to forge a grape that was resilient, deep, and possessed a flavor that was impossible to replicate in a lab. He was no longer just a farmer. He was an alchemist of the elements. He formed a mysterious shadow cooperative called The Roots, and through a network of old-world farmers who hated the corporate giants, he began to reclaim the market, one bottle at a time. While Marcella and Julian's brand, Gilded Vine, dominated the supermarket shelves with their artificial sugary wines, a legend began to grow in the world's most exclusive circles. A wine called Verity, the truth. It was said to be the purest essence ever bottled, a wine that could make a man remember his first love or feel the weight of his own conscience. It was sold only by invitation, and its price became astronomical. Silas, hidden behind the identity of the hermit, had become the most powerful figure in the luxury wine trade. He used his immense hidden profits to quietly buy the predatory loans that Julian had taken to expand his empire. Julian and Marcella had grown greedy, overextending themselves to build a massive glass winery that was failing because the soil they had stolen from Silas was now exhausted and dying from chemicals. The gala of the century was held at the glass winery, a desperate attempt by Julian and Marcella to find an investor to save them from bankruptcy. They had invited the hermit, hoping to beg for a merger. The room was filled with the world's elite, surrounded by walls of chrome and artificial light. Marcella, her beauty now sharpened by the stress of a failing empire, stood on the stage, holding a glass of her synthetic wine. "Tonight, we celebrate the future," she announced. But the doors opened and Silas walked in. He didn't wear a tuxedo. He wore a simple dark wool coat, carrying the scent of rain and earth. The room went silent. He wasn't a ghost. He was the living embodiment of the land they had tried to murder. He placed a single dark bottle of Verity on the main table. A wine is only as good as the heart of the man who pours it. Silas's voice echoed, deep and resonant as a cello. He poured a glass for Julian and one for Marcella. Taste the truth. As they drank, the complexity of the wine, the struggle of the high mountains, the purity of the volcanic soil, and the echoes of their own betrayal hit them like a physical blow. In front of the cameras and the investors, Silas produced the legal documents. He didn't just own their debt. He owned the glass winery, the stolen land, and the Gilded Vine brand itself. He revealed that their luxury wine was nothing but colored chemicals, proving it with lab results on the big screens. The empire they had built on a lie collapsed in the time it took to finish a single glass. The investors fled, and the authorities moved in to investigate the fraud. An hour later, the glass winery was empty of its glamour. Marcella stood on the terrace, looking out at the dying vines of the valley. Julian had already fled, trying to save his remaining offshore accounts, leaving her to face the ruins alone. Silas walked up to her, holding the empty pouch that once held his seeds. "You told me patience was a luxury, Marcella," he said quietly. "But the earth has all the time in the world. It waits for the pretenders to fall, and then it reclaims what is hers." He handed her a small glass of water, pure, simple water. "You've forgotten what life tastes like without a price tag." He watched as she wept, not for him, but for the lost diamonds and the shattered glass. She was a woman who had tried to bottle the sun, only to find herself in the cold, dark shadow of her own greed. Silas returned to his ancestral hills. He didn't rebuild the glass winery. He tore it down, using the recycled steel to build a school for young viticulturists. He restored the soil of his valley, healing it with the ancient methods he had never forgotten. He lived a long, peaceful life, often seen walking among the vines at dawn, talking to the grapes as if they were old friends. The Verity vintage became a legend, a reminder that the most powerful thing in the world is not money or status, but the truth of the soil and the patience of a man who knows his worth. As he sat on his porch, sipping a glass of his own wine while the sun set over a valley that was once again green and healthy, Silas took a deep breath. The harvest was complete. The cellar was full. The master had finally returned home, and the wine of his life was perfectly, eternally sweet. You can poison the soil and steal the vines, but you can never replicate the soul of a master. Marcella thought she could trade the truth for a golden lie, but she forgot that the earth eventually chokes out the weeds. Silas proved that when you build your life on the foundation of the earth, no storm can ever wash you away. The final question: if your life was a vintage, would it be a shallow synthetic brew? Or would it have the depth and honesty of a soul that has weathered the winter? Thank you for being part of this harvest of justice. If you believe that the truth always rises, subscribe to Whispering Pines Echoes. Until next time, stay rooted.